everyone, and welcome back. I'm your host, Veteran Mountain Man. Last night on my live stream, I was reminding everybody to vote because the 6th of November is coming up here very, very shortly. In fact, it's got about a week left. And I mentioned to everyone to think about what you consider to be important to vote, and to consider the candidates, and to make the choice that you deem correct. However, today I actually wanted to talk about some of the things that affect my vote. Now, many of you who have listened to a lot of my broadcasts or a lot of my podcasts will already know that I'm a little different than the Republican Party when it comes to how I think. And yes, I do tend to support Republicans, but that's mostly because of the way Republicans govern. And I'm not opposed to supporting anyone who's going to govern in a fashion that I deem is appropriate. I just haven't found good alternative candidates in most situations and have to go with the best decision I have available at the time. Now, one of the things that drives my voting is expansion of government. See, the Constitution, when it was written, specifically and narrowly defined the obligations, duties, and requirements of the federal government. And a lot of candidates that run on bigger government platforms, on more pork spending, on increasing of welfare, increasing of social entitlements, of new laws, regulations, and bureaus, I can't support. Even when a candidate I have supported does something of this nature, a lot of times it will lose me as a supporter because I don't agree with the expansion of government power beyond the Constitution. And I don't think that government is essential to be in our everyday lives. It's one of the reasons I promote citizen legislators as opposed to professional legislators. That is another thing that weighs heavily when I'm making a decision whether or not the person has a career, a functioning, viable, real career, and isn't just a career politician. See, Bernie Sanders would have never received a vote from me from day one. He has never held a career other than politics and going to school. And I can't support someone who has never been either in business as a professional or as a laborer or as a worker or run their own company or done something as a career first. Part of the reason is because they don't actually understand the real world essentials of doing something like that. It's one of the reasons I'm not particularly fond of the Clintons. I haven't been particularly fond of most of the Bushes. It's one of the things that actually made me more comfortable with Trump over some of the other candidates was the fact that he had had an entire career as a businessman and a land developer and a person who managed real estate transactions and deals and businesses. While I don't support everything he's done, I think he's done fairly well. Now, guns do come in to the list. I don't like gun control measures. I don't like the idea of disarming the American citizenry. I think that every American citizen should be able to stand up for their own personal defense and do what they need to protect themselves and their family within the law. However, I also don't want roving gangs wandering around committing acts of violence, which is why I tend to be pro-law enforcement and pro-nation of laws. It also means I'm not very fond of certain types of corporatized law enforcement. Any prison that does certain things, such as, abuses the inmates, I don't really support. Now, that being said, I also do think that if you commit a crime, you do have to pay the penalty under the law. I don't support activism in judges. Precedence is important. Historical precedence is important. But what is more important is the actual context of the law, the actual lettering of the law, and the actual context and letters of the Constitution of both the state and the federal levels that you're governed under. Because those things are why we have to create laws. Those founding documents give the specific powers to the specific entities in most cases. And then those entities are supposed to figure out where the social contract stands. And when you start analyzing your social contract, if things are weighted unevenly or things are damaging to the social contract, you need to be able to speak up and bring it to your politicians and bring it to those leaders and actually be able to get results if it really is an issue. Now, some of the things that aren't huge concerns for me. Specific religious groups. I want freedom of religion for everyone, but I don't vote with a religious bloc. I refuse to actually vote as part of a religious bloc, because in doing so, you isolate yourself to one specific concept and context as to how you're going to vote. I don't vote based on identity. I won't vote for a Republican just because they have an R beside their name. I want to see a candidate that understands and reflects the ideas of liberty and individuality that I respect and stand for. And unless they do, they have trouble getting my vote. And in many cases, I have to vote the lesser of the evils in most elections, because there aren't many people running for office that are willing to eschew power for the people of the United States. And it's part of the problem that we've found ourselves fallen into. We shouldn't be electing politicians who demand power. We should be electing politicians who don't want it. And it's hard to get somebody who doesn't want power to run. And it's hard to get somebody who isn't going to seize power and become drunk on it to become a leader. Because in many cases, they don't want to lead. They can lead, but they don't want to. So, I want you to think about those things, and I want you to sit down and actually think about what's important to you in leadership, in a politician, in somebody who's going to represent you at the government level before you go and cast your ballot. And when you think about it, try to actually analyze which candidate is going to be the best choice. And you know what? It's okay if you make a mistake. I've made mistakes in voting in the past. I voted for several different candidates that I wish I'd never cast a ballot for, especially after having seen what they did after I cast a ballot for them. And in some cases, I have absolutely refused to support them further after they've betrayed my trust. And that's okay. That's part of the American political system. So, thank you all again for joining me. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to check out my other social media sites, which are linked down below. And please, remember, think it out. work it out, and then go vote. Thank you all, and have yourself